What's going on, guys? Sergeant Galaxy, aka Sergeant Galaxia, back with another video for you guys today. And today I'm going to be giving you a deck profile based around the Secret Sanctuary card that came out, which I mentioned in a previous video. So highly recommend you guys check that out. So what I'll do first is I will talk about what cards I have in here, and then I'll go with combos after. So I run 3 Exemplar, 2 Summoner Monk, 3 Knight's End, 2 Tricky, 2 Defender, 2 Kaiku, 2 Breaker. Onto the spells, we have 3 Potted Duality, 2 Wonder Wand, 1 Allure, 3 Secret Sanctuary, 3 Secret Village, 1 Terraforming, 3 MSTs, 2 Instant Fusion, 3 Magician Circles for the traps, and Gaga Shield at 3 as well. So, some of the combos that this deck runs. So some of you may or may not know some of the combos, and I am here to show you. So basically what you want to do with Exemplar, basically Exemplar is your special summoner of the deck. She's way too good to not run at 3, and because you've run 18 spells, so you're going to be running you're going to be special summoning a lot. So that's why it's kind of a, as you can tell up there, anti-meta Spellcaster turbo. That's where the turbo comes in. So yeah, she just gets a bunch of shit out, and I'll explain it with the other cards later. Summoner Monk, you need to have Summoner Monk in this. If you're going to do anti-meta, this is why this is why the Kaiku is played, because it's the sole reason that this is anti-meta, because you drop a Summoner Monk, ditch either extra copy of one of these, or if you don't need the terraforming, or just anything really, bring out the Kaiku and combo these two on, and you just win the game. Literally, you just win the game. Because they can't activate effects, they can't attack, they can't activate spells, and you have a Kaiku they can't banish. It's it's 4 situations at once, so it's ridiculous. And another amazing card that I'm going to be trying to run at 3, and I think you really need to run it at 3, is Knight's End Sorcerer. Knight's End Sorcerer basically is, as soon as it's special summon, you banish 2 from your opponent's grave, and you would be surprised at how many times this actually goes on. In one turn, I probably used this effect 3 times. And it's not that hard to do, to be honest. So, yeah, it's amazing. It's really good. Let's see. So, 2 Tricky. Basically, what the Trickies are for is obviously special summoning it from the hand. But another thing to take note of too is, say for example, if you either have a excuse me, a Knight's End in your hand and an Exemplar, like let's say you have an Exemplar, Knight's End, and a Tricky, right? So what you do is, with the Tricky, you ditch Knight's End to special summon it. Then you normal summon Exemplar, use any of your 18 spells that are never dead, basically to get your free counters. You special summon Knight's End from the grave, and you sync for an Arcanite, and you can pop, and if you have any more spells, you can do it that way too. So yeah, tricky combos really, really well, and it can be searched with Magician Circle, so you don't have to discard as well. So what else here? Defender. Defender is amazing in this deck because it can be brought back by Summoner Monk late game, mid to late game if it hasn't been brought out yet. Because if you have your Exemplar generating counters, you can use his effect still with Exemplar, because that's why I feel Exemplar is amazing in this deck. Absolutely amazing, because a lot of these cards, besides Breaker of course, can utilize her counters as opposed to relying on their own. So Kaiku is really obvious. I don't really need to explain Kaiku. Breaker is another good one compared to combo with MST, because this deck really suffers from back row, and as well as the Field Spell War. It doesn't really hurt too much, but if you go second or whatever, if they establish field presence first, then it's nice to have that, or to chain against like a Ravine or any stupid stuff like that. But or probably the biggest one is the DNA Surgery, because if any of these obviously aren't Spellcasters anymore, none of these cards work. So that's why I main triple MST and double Breaker, because I hate back row. Pot of Duality actually doesn't hurt this deck as you would think. On one hand, you have a lot of special summoning turbo. At the other hand, you have the anti-meta. Basically, the Duality gets to your anti-meta as quick as possible, because you need to open up with these two. If you don't, it's kind of hard to keep your opponent in a lock. But if you open up with these two, and you get them out somehow, it's so good, absolutely insane. The double Wonder Wand, basically you're getting, it's basically your pot of greed in the deck, because if you have an exemplar, well, let's say this right, you have an exemplar out, and let's say it has two counters, right? You special summon the Knight's End, you use Wonder Wand, you put it, throw it in the grave, and you draw two, and you have the Knight's End in grave, you have your exemplar back at two counters, so it can special summon next turn, and it's just absolutely ridiculous. So, and the one allure, because we run, again, we run triple Knight's End, so it become a little bit cloggy. So you can still draw off with the allure, because we run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Nine's not bad to get the effect off. And Secret Sanctuary, combined with, this is really why I'm talking about this video so much, is the Secret Sanctuary, for those of you who don't know, the only way that it can really work. First of all, the condition is that if you control a face-up spell card and your opponent does not control a face-up spell card, anytime your opponent normal or special summons, that monster cannot attack or activate its effects that turn. And if you control no spellcasters, then the card's destroyed. So that's why it goes great with Secret Village, because if they don't have a face-up spell card, then they can't, when they normal summon, they can't activate effects or attack, and Secret Village prevents them from activating spells. So you have them in then a really nice lock where, again, they can't attack, they can't activate effects, and they can't activate spells. So that's basically, you're basically eliminating the two-thirds of core Yu-Gi-Oh! You can't really do anything off your normal summon or special summon. You can't do anything with spells, so all you have is traps. And that's why I run triple MST and double breaker, so it's like they have to set up for something. And the terraforming, because you really need to get into this card, you really need to get into Village. Village is obviously a little bit better than Secret Sanctuary, so you need to get into it ASAP Rocky. MSTs, again, because of just the generic back row to just pop stuff that they're desperately trying to set. I mean, it's nice to, because they have to, like, if they're trying to like bluff you or whatever, and they have to set like really good cards, you can just basically just MST them or breaker them to basically just eliminate all their resources because they can't use them. And then even if your spellcasters are done, you've destroyed like all their power cards, so what else can they do? And the two instant fusions are basically the tricky, but if you, for example, have the, like, either a Knight's End or instant fusion, or the Exemplar and Knight's End on board or something like that with instant fusion, you just, basically what you want to do with this deck is have an Arcanite with Exemplar on board, with Exemplar having counters, because you basically use all Exemplar's counters to use Arcanite's effect without removing his own counters, so he's still at 2400, which is ridiculous. Basically the three Magician Circles to get to all these guys that you want, and probably the biggest thing that would destroy this deck is basically you need to remove the Spellcasters, because if you remove the Spellcasters, that's what happens, you win the game. So that's why I run 3 Gaga Shield, because they can't really do effects, they can't really, I mean, you could run Decrees in here if you really wanted to, if you didn't feel that Circle was good, but Circle really adds the turbo consistency. You can throw like 4 or 5 monsters on board if you really wanted to. So that's where some of that comes in, and some of the extra cards. Arcanite Magician is really the MVP of this deck. You really want to make Arcanite as quickly as possible, because the ability to just destroy all your opponent's cards on the field when you have this comboed with Exemplar, because when they're just desperately setting stuff because they can't do anything under Sanctuary Village Lock, you just pop everything. It's ridiculous. And you can use it, for those of you who don't know, you can use it more than once per turn, so you could potentially destroy like a 5 set back row, a 5 front row with like 10 counters. You can destroy their entire field. It's ridiculous. And Tempest is really good in this deck. She's so good. You can make her literally every turn. And with, again, if you wanted to combo with Exemplar, you could burn your opponent for pretty much like 3,000 if you wanted to, or some ridiculously high number with all the counters that are floating on board. And Explosive Magician, you basically can make a breaker if you really needed to with the FUD 2500, and these are just like regular, just generic stuff that you can make. This deck can make a lot of stuff, and a cool thing is with Tricky and Instant Fusion, these cards are really never dead. Outside, like if you've already made the Arcanites and all that, and if you still have these floating in your deck, they're never dead, because you can like use this as special, and you use Tricky to special, so you can make 2 level 5s. So you can make it with like Volcanosaurus or whatever. Because if you guys are wondering for instant fusion, or for what I would instant fusion in, is Musician King, because he's a spellcaster level 5. So that's where it comes in. And it's nice to combo. On a side note, if you really wanted to, if you had like a Wonder Wand in this, you activate this to get Musician King, activate Wonder Wand, dump Musician King, and draw 2. So it's good. So that is the deck, guys. This deck really, from what I've tested and what I've like kind of like self-play tested with, it's absolutely amazing. You have no idea how fast this deck can go off. I mean, obviously the only thing that it would be really bad against is Prophecies, because they have Spellcasters too, and a lot of these are bad. Besides Secret Village, I mean, if they didn't have like a Blue Boy or something that they couldn't summon right away, they can't like activate all their like spell books and stuff. So even if they have a Spellcaster themed deck, they can't activate Secret Sister to Blue Boy. So it's cool like that. So let me know what you guys think of the deck. I love it. If you guys have any suggestions, please let me know in the comments below, or what you like or dislike about it. So that's it for me, guys. So see you later, Space Cowboys. Sounds good.